If you had told me that an action RPG with dating elements would capture my attention, I wouldn't have believed you, but here we are. Eternights has won me over with its likeable cast, unique mechanics, and clear passion for the world of Persona. And while it's not perfect, I do want to answer the questions I had going in, namely, how do these elements work together? Is the dating simulation aspect optional? And is it too ambitious? Let's get into it. If you enjoy the video today, consider subscribing, it helps us out a huge amount, and here we have reviews, deals and lists weekly. Picture yourself in this scenario. One moment you're an average Joe laughing with friends and swiping left or right on a dating app, the next the world is unrecognizable and survival becomes the only game in town. Now what has happened? Well, we don't really know, but there was some sort of explosion and now most of humanity has been transformed into deadly creatures with a singular goal, which is to kill. At first, you naturally try to dodge the creatures and find refuge, and who can blame them? You're hoping to remain unnoticed with a let's wait and see what happens approach. In fact, you do put all of your efforts into this strategy, but it's quickly revealed that this location can't protect you forever, and it quickly becomes time to act. That is, to relocate to a more secure area, what I'd say is relatively close to your current location that appears to have military support. This is the moment where things truly spiral out of control. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears out of nowhere, and your instincts they tell you something isn't quite right about her, and your gut feeling here it is spot on. She begins to hurl strange accusations your way, claiming that you are the chosen one, and then proceeds to chop off your arm. You would think she would aim for your head as a more surefire way to eliminate you, but I mean, like any video game bad guy, they're never the sharpest tools in the sheds. Then her plan is thwarted even further, because to everyone's surprise, your arm regenerates in a glowing form, and I guess in a twist of fate, it now possesses the ability to transform into a sword. Basically, it seems she was telling the truth, but her efforts to stop you were too slow, so with your newfound power, your mission to save the world begins. You'll be joining forces with an organization that believes they possess the solution to the chaos, and their guidance leads you on a mission to reach a central target via a train and destroy it. The narrative from this point forward, it's quite simple, yet it's the handful of characters you encounter that really caught my attention. You know, at first I thought I would sidestep these romantic subplots, however, found myself enjoying the straightforward, innocent dialogue exchanges that unexpectedly enhance both the plot and my bond with these characters. Basically, even if romantic elements aren't typically your preference, I would say at least give them a shot. So what's the gameplay like? And essentially it's split into two parts. First, you can explore dungeons, complete missions. Alternatively, you can engage in conversations on the train at your hub location, which allows you to learn more about your team and deepen those relationships. I also mentioned Persona in the introduction. That wasn't just because of the visual similarities, it's because like Persona, Eternights operates on a calendar system. This means that when you receive a mission, you have a fixed amount of time to complete it, making it often a race against the clock. Delving into the core mechanics then, Eternights reveals its true colors as an action RPG. This involves real-time combat that's exhilarating as you learn to counter, dodge incoming attacks, and deal significant damage in return. The game allows for a variety of playstyles, so for instance, I gravitated towards a more, defensive approach that was to use the dodge mechanic, which when executed perfectly, it slows down a time momentarily. So while the combat might initially remind you of, let's say, hack and slash games, it rapidly evolves, demanding of more strategy. The evolution of your character then is driven by a skill tree system. Completing battles helps our protagonist rise in the ranks, granting them a selection of moves to unlock using a collectible known as Black Essence. This essence is either dropped by defeated enemies or it can be discovered in secret locations. In contrast then, there is also White Essence. This is used for unlocking skills within our party. However, to use it, we must first rank up our party members, which is achieved by building relationships. I like this system because it emphasizes that the bonds we form along the way, they play a crucial role in our journey. These team members as well, they are essential that join you. They each bring a unique support skill set, and that's why all of this is so important. This could be healing abilities or elemental attacks such as ice and fire. And as the game, progresses, these skills become increasingly important. This is because the infected, they start to develop shields that require specific attack types to break them. So these attacks, they're basically dubbed as elemental fists, and there's going to be a meter next to your health bar that you must fill up to use these attacks. So definitely focus on rounding out that team around you. Combat then also includes two special abilities, Death Blow and Blast Skills. Death Blow is a single button quick time event triggered after a series of successful hits. Blast Skills, meanwhile, need a set number of elemental attacks to be unleashed. This one in particular deals massive damage. While the combat system offers then robust ways to customize our protagonist and team, it's also just simply fast-paced and fun. You know, the enemy design, I'd admit, could use a little extra variety to add extra tension, but the bosses shine throughout the experience, and overall I felt it just demanded a strategic approach. Dungeon design is respectable, although perhaps a tad more linear than anticipated despite the occasional branching pathway, and while there is the occasional surprise here and there, the design overall I would call it quite basic. You know, expect to encounter some simple puzzles on this journey, think button switches, security cameras, a dance rhythm game, surprisingly, even a floor path minigame, probably my favourite, where you have to determine which ground is safe and which ground will, crumble below you. So basically, it's not a massive flaw, it's just evident at times that the game had, more potential in this aspect. As a result though, because there wasn't a huge amount here to investigate, I did find myself just pushing forward rather than thoroughly exploring. The relationship building aspect of Eternights then is a significant part of the game where you have the opportunity to form romantic connections. However, this component of the game, as I've said, is entirely optional, and I do want to make that clear. You cannot just stay friends, but you should at least engage with them a minimal amount. The initial stages of establishing these connections as well, they are enjoyable, but the charm, it gradually fades into repetition as the game progresses. With each character, you basically have the chance to engage in conversations, propose dates, assist them in scavenger hunts, and go along and train with them. I genuinely enjoyed the initial conversations and the character build-up. However, as the endgame approached, I noticed repetition. The limited options for the dating stage were disappointing as well, with only a couple of options. It didn't feel like, much of a payoff for all of those conversations you were having. And then the missions characters occasionally propose. Those were actually a highlight because they're quite entertaining, they're taking you to new locations, and they frequently involve battles against waves of enemies. The training minigames and the scavenger hunts, however, unfortunately did not match up to the rest. The training minigames remain the same throughout, making them just monotonous over time, and the scavenger hunts, where a character needs an item, you head out to find it, they're about as dull as they come. There's only 3 locations, and the items in them never change, just simply making it bland. My final note then, each of these actions, including heading to the current dungeon, it will cost you in relation to the calendar. This is because each calendar day operates on a day and night cycle, and any action, it costs either the full day or full night. You can only visit the dungeons during daytime as well, so you'll have to prioritize accordingly around it. However, I never found it challenging to complete an objective within the given time frame, but that could be different with the inclusion of New Game Plus, which will unlock after that first completion. So overall for gameplay, Eternights was a pleasant surprise. Yes, there were complaints, and I stand by them. However, the combination of gameplay elements was executed so well that it's hard to deny. I found myself genuinely feeling a connection to many of the characters, a development, as I've said, I didn't expect. Unfortunately, the repetition towards the endgame does these characters a disservice, selling them a little short. But despite this, the action, the significant part of the gameplay, it is undeniably great fun, and it's got a huge amount of potential to evolve from a gameplay perspective in a potential follow-up. From a visual standpoint, I'd say I was impressed with Eternights. The unique character models and well-executed action sequences just definitely noteworthy. Couldn't help but wish, honestly, for a tad more, let's say, weapon diversity during the different attacks, but the enemy designs are imaginative, and I found the towering boss encounters particularly impressive. Also, the game packs in a good number of mechanics, and I was pleasantly surprised by the simplicity of the user interface and the different menus. The train then, serving as the central hub location, I really liked as well. It's this ideal place for discussion and training sessions with those different team members, but I will say maybe the inclusion of a few more animations could have brought some additional, life to this area. The characters are primarily stationary. My main gripe really pertains to the dungeons themselves. The game opts for a rather dark, minimalistic lighting style and visual design, and I am fond of the style in general. It just becomes slightly repetitive, with each location bearing a striking resemblance to the previous one you were tackling. And as the cherry on top then, the game features cutscenes, and some of these they are using the in-game engine, but others are showcased as anime cutscenes, and they are incredibly well done. When it comes to audio then, this small indie production delivers beyond expectations. It's fully voice acted in English, Japanese and Korean. The English delivery, how I played for the most part, is well done, and this just adds an extra layer of life to these characters, a feature often overlooked in the indie landscape, and understandably so, given the additional costs involved, which many studios simply can't bear. This, in my opinion alone, deserves a lot of respect. The audio experience then doesn't end there as well. It's complemented with a limited sound field, which does a sufficient job of bringing locations to life, and it's backed by solid weapon effects, and there's also a decent little soundtrack accompanying the game. I'd say it follows a predictable pattern for the genre, but I enjoyed it and it reflects the emotions of the story well. Eternights was by far a surprise for me. While I do have some gripes, particularly about the overly simplified character interactions and some, I guess, redundant dialogue towards the end game, the overall experience was definitely enjoyable. After 11 hours on this journey, reaching the game's conclusion was simply bittersweet, but now with options for New Game Plus and even multiple difficulty levels, I have reasons to dive back in, and I definitely appreciate it. I'm eager now to see how different decisions with these characters alter the story on my next playthrough. On this first, run, I focused on 1 out of the 5 characters, so I'm curious about the relationship dynamics and how that would change the story with the other 2 female or 2 male character options. In terms of combat and gameplay then, Eternights is great, the skill set evolves continuously, and the unique support team system allows for a variety of special abilities and attacks that truly makes you feel like a team. So overall today, it's a good 7 out of 10 from me. The characters, some of the most endearing I have encountered in a while, and I do look forward to seeing this team's future endeavors. It's also worth noting that this game was developed by a small team with only 1 full-time member for a significant part of the process, so it's just really impressive here what they have achieved. So with that, will you be picking up Eternights? Let us know in the comments. Then hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, and news weekly, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.